So let's take a look at an example of doing double duty. This is a house that I designed in Stowe in Vermont, and this is actually a room that on a regular basis the homeowner uses as her in-home office. But when guests come over, you see that large slab? It comes down. It's a Murphy bed. This is a very, very simple addition, and yet it's something that transforms a space that would otherwise be very rarely used into something really wonderful. This is a perfect example of a guest bedroom that does double duty as an in-home office. And very frequently, those two spaces work very, very well together. It's a simple way of making one space do two things. Another thing that very frequently doesn't get used very adequately in our houses, as we've already discussed, is the formal dining room. And in fact, in many houses, there are three different places for dining. We have the formal dining room, we have the informal dining area, and then often we'll have a kitchen eating bar. Most people don't actually use all three of those spaces. So let's take a look at them in your houses, and you tell me how you use them. How do you use, for example, your formal dining room?
Well, actually, I have an informal dining room, and the way that that's used, it's used for everything but dining, such as mail sorting, paying bills, doing homework, building projects, everything but entertaining.
Well, that's very typical. In fact, I think a lot of times dining areas end up being that repository of all the things that we don't have a place for, because we need other spots. One I hear a lot about is mail sorting. We get all this mail that arrives and no place to put it. But that's the kind of thing where there's a better way to design that space for the functions you're talking about than it being in the dining area. How about others of you?
Well, actually, Sarah, we use our dining room a lot. We love to entertain, and about once a month we have a rather large dinner party in it.
Well, for you, in all likelihood, a formal dining room is a good idea. And for, I would say, about 15% of the population, they still use their formal dining rooms, and that makes all the sense in the world. So I'm not trying to talk people out of a room that they use frequently. Let's hear from somebody else.
Our dining room doesn't really get used that much. It's probably only for holidays and formal dinners. But ironically enough, it's a space that we've renovated and put a lot of money into to make it look nice, but we're just not there that much.
Well, you're the most typical of all, because in many houses that have those formal dining rooms, they literally sit empty. And if you think of the amount of money that you spent on that remodeling, you know that there's probably a much better way of using that money for something you're going to use every day. So for you, this doing double duty with the dining area will make all the sense in the world. So let me explain how it works. This is actually the house that I designed for myself as the prototype not so big house. You can see here that on an everyday basis, this table serves for informal functions. But when we have people over to dinner, then it can be redesigned, essentially. It serves very nicely for Thanksgiving dinners even. It's an informal space that can be turned into a formal space just occasionally. You think about how many square feet there are in a dining room, at least about 200, and then think of how much per square foot we're spending on new space. That's a lot of money, and a lot of money to save and use more effectively. This is the house in Vermont again, and here you'll see the same thing. The everyday dining area is an informal space, but beautiful. It's up in the sun, it's in the place that you would like to hang out. And then when it's transformed for its night use, we suddenly see a much more formal feeling space, but it's the same area. How did this happen? It's lighting. That's all that's really changing the room. It's not a big deal, and it doesn't require that extra 200 square feet of space. So this is making more with less, and this is the core of building not so big.